Have you ever heard the saying, history is written by the victors? Basically meaning that the winners get to tell their side of the story. If you and your enemy goes to war, the winner will be the one, the victors will be the one that get to spin the narrative and tell their version of events. Even though we know there's two sides to every story. And because there's two sides to every story, we know that a lot of what we think we know about history may not be correct. There's a lot of people that history has demonized and painted out to be villains that might not be the villain after all. The reality is we really don't know. Because back in the day when you had these big wars, these crusades, these huge conflicts, one of the first things the victors of war would do, they would destroy their enemies' libraries, their writings, their books, their teachings, their religious texts, you name it. That was one of the first things they did. And that's why they say history is written by the victors. But this is not just something that happened in ancient times. No, folks, this is happening right now as we speak. We are witnessing it play out in real time. Just think about all of the crazy stuff that's happened over the last few years, and then think about how the media has covered it. Think about the mostly peaceful protest. Think about the most deadly common cold ever known to man. Think about all of the stuff that's transpired, and think about the official narrative that the media and our government has spun. You see, we know that they're full of crap now. We can call this out now, but 400 years from now, we're not going to be here. But guess what? Their fake telling of events, it will be here. So people in the future, they'll have no understanding of what we went through, what we actually fought against. All they'll know is the official narrative. And we know now that the official narrative from current times, it's fake. We know that they're lying about everything, but people in the future might not know that. So that's basically what's happening right now. And it's happening with a lot of stories, especially with what happened with Trump just a few weeks ago. You see, I talk about how the victors, they change history, they form their narratives, they shape the story, so you don't really know what happened. Well, guess what? They're doing this right now with the Trump rally situation. And it's crazy because usually you reshape history over time. Over time, little details change. Over time, pieces of information go missing. But with this Trump situation, this just happened 3 weeks ago. A little over 2 weeks ago, and they're already trying to change the narrative. They're already trying to scrub the story. Over on Facebook, over on Meta, for the last week, they have been removing, flagging, and fact-checking all of the photos from the Trump rally where that tragedy happened. You know, the iconic photos of Trump with his fist raised? Well, they're removing those photos. They're fact-checking those photos and saying that they're altered and fake in an attempt to change and rewrite history. Now, of course, right now, today, we know this is some BS. We literally watched this happen with our own two eyes a couple of weeks ago, but guess what? In the future, they're not going to know that. So a lot of what you see happening right now, it's not about you. It's not about people in current times. No, they're already scrubbing stuff now. So in the future, this story will be buried. They're not necessarily worried about lying to you now. They're worried about lying to people in the future. So when you see Facebook or Meta and these other social media platforms doing this, understand that this is all about controlling the current narrative, but it's also about controlling the future narrative. Because they don't want people talking about this story. They don't want people looking into this story. They don't want people knowing about this story. and flagging these photos and removing them from Facebook and slapping fact checks on them. It might not work on us now, but it will work on future generations. And how can you look at this? How can you look at how they're trying to rewrite history in front of our face and not question everything you thought you knew about the past? This should show you that history, or a lot of these telling of events, just may not be true. And we know that because we're watching them change the facts, cover up the facts right now in front of our faces, blatantly doing it in front of our faces. And it's crazy because back in the day, you know, when people didn't have the internet and stuff like that, maybe they could get away with it a little more easier. But now it's like they're not even hiding it. They're doing it in your face. And you're outraged and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't see the bigger picture. They don't see that this is not just about you. This is not just about lying to you. This is not just about right now. This is about the future as well. But it's not just social media. We have Google as well. As you know, when people think of power, they think of powerful people, like specifically. You think of these billionaires, you think of these world leaders. Well, nothing in the world is more powerful than Google. You can take your strongest atomic, nuclear, hypersonic missile bomb. It's not as strong and as powerful as Google. Google is the most powerful force on this earth right now. Google is like, it's almost like what I would call like a librarian. Google is the holder of all information. 99% of people, when they're looking for something, when they're trying to find out something, they're not reading books, they're not going to the library, they're going to Google. Google has the monopoly, basically, on info. They control info. And you know, when you typically do a Google search, there's a prediction. You can type in a P and it will say pots, peas, you know, pottery. You type in an R and it says racks or whatever, you get it. But when you go look up assassination attempts, when you go look up Donald Trump, their predictive search bar does not work. It will look up JFK, it will look up Ronald Reagan, it will look up anything you want in the world, but lately a lot of users of Google are reporting that their predictive searches will not show the attempt on Trump's life. They will not show information about that. And even when you Google search it directly, it brings up a lot of articles and a lot of information that doesn't have much to do with what actually happened. Now, some people look at this and they think that this isn't a big deal. But when you realize how many people go to Google for information, you would realize how big of a deal it is. Of course, me and you, we know where to go to get our information. We know where to go to look at photos of the Trump rally. We know where to go to do this and do that. But normies don't. Normies use Google. So when you are taking something out of your search engine, when you're making it harder for people to find information, you're suppressing that information, and that has a major impact. It might not have a major impact on you because you're already in the know, but most people are not. Google is in control of this information, and Google is purposely suppressing this information. They're making it hard for you to search this stuff purposely. So you have Google making it extremely difficult to do your research and to look up information about this story. You have Meta or Facebook and Instagram removing photos and fact-checking actual real photos. And then over on YouTube, every video I've made on this topic has been suppressed. You got them taking down videos, marking videos as not advertiser friendly. And it's funny because they'll allow a lot of these like really far out there weird conspiracies. They'll allow them to go crazy. But if you're someone that even seems like you're really dedicated to getting to the truth, they make sure that you don't, your reach doesn't really reach too far and wide. Let's just put it like that. So what we're witnessing here is a fortified cover-up. And it's not just about covering it up in real time. It's not just about controlling the information in real time. It's really about controlling the information in the future, because they don't want this to be used as a talking point against them. And also, even in the real time, they want to make it as hard as possible to do your research on this story, because even when you do a tad bit of research, it's easy. It's very easy to come to the conclusion that something isn't right here. I know they want to chalk it up to incompetence. They fired the head of the Secret Service, or she resigned, and that's what they want. They want you to say, oh, well, the head of the Secret Service resigned. I guess that's the end of the story. Someone was held accountable. Let's move on. Then you got all of this other crazy stuff happening. Joe Biden stepping down, Kamala Harris stepping up, this crazy chain of events. And I don't think it's just a coincidence. I think it was timed perfectly to take everyone's attention off of the elephant in the room, and that is that it appears that someone, a 20-year-old, may have had help trying to take out Donald Trump just a couple of weeks ago. But folks, these are not the only shady tactics that they're using. They're doing a lot of other stuff behind the scenes as well, and maybe we'll talk about that and expose a lot of that stuff in a future video. But for now, I think it's important that we keep talking about this story. We keep this story in the spotlight, and we don't let this story die, because that is what they want, and there is an active effort to make sure that happens, but we still need the truth. So the best way to get to the truth is to keep this story alive. And one of the best ways you can keep this story alive is by sharing this video and sharing this information. So reshare this video on social media. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, and I will talk to you all soon in the next one.